I want someone to be honest with me and say, look, the latency is going to be horrible. It was Indian talent. It was Indian sweat. It was Indian customer. But the pricing power was not in. The DPDP Act, which talks about data being resident in India, data cannot be subpoenaed by the US Cloud Act. We have a tremendous opportunity this time to do something different, to do something better, and learn from the past.
India is at a cloud inflection point. The question is not if, it is how, where, and at what cost. Yet most of the migration frameworks, SLAs, and pricing model were written for someone else's context. Welcome to Cloud Decoded by AceCloud, where we talk to the leaders of India who have built the technology future of the country. And today, for our very first episode, we are going to discuss the infrastructure gap that nobody in India is talking about. And to have this very first conversation, I have someone who started the tech revolution at Tech Mahindra. The person we have today with us, Mr. Manoj Chugh, and welcome to Cloud Decoded by AceCloud.
Thank you very much, Akanksha, and truly appreciate your very, very generous introduction.
You know, when you were framing, when you were setting up the infrastructure at Cisco, when nobody actually knew what a router was, and the latency was an issue till then also, that was a physical issue. Then you sorted that out with pipes, with peering, with proximity. And now people are saying that AI and cloud is going to solve everything. However, enterprises and organizations are still facing the latency battles in 2026. Your experience in the industry, your time that you've given to this industry, what do you think, in your honest opinion, that has changed, and what you think that hasn't?
Well, I think it's a very profound question that you've asked. Of course, networking technology in India existed before I walked into this industry. But I can safely say that certainly there was a role that my team played, a very significant role in terms of driving acceleration. So if I were to go back in history more than 25 years ago, when we were trying to popularize and set up the internet infrastructure in this country, our biggest enemy at that time was physics. And it was physics because of latency.
Right.
And why did we have latency issues at that point in time? It was because of distance. It was because of cable quality. It was also because of the fact that we didn't have too many internet exchange points. We didn't have enough peering stations, if you will. So therefore, physical infrastructure was a very, very big roadblock in terms of trying to drive the benefits of internet across the length and breadth of India. And I think our entrepreneurs did a great job in terms of putting in the hard work, putting in the investments, and building out that infrastructure, whether it was in terms of fiber, whether it was in terms of creating more exchange internet points, and then, of course, whether it was in terms of making sure that networks could talk to networks. So I think we were able to overcome the problem at that point in time through sheer grit. But I think as a country, we went on that journey. Once we solved that problem to a certain extent, and again, India is a very, very large country, you can't solve problems overnight. Fast forward to where we are today, I think our problems have moved from physical to the software layer now. So I think there things have become very interesting. So for example, when you look at any enterprise application, which is, for example, hosted on the cloud, then the question is, what is the latency that my application is going to be able to tolerate? And what is the latency that a specific cloud provider is able to deliver? And a lot of that decision now depends upon the software layer. It depends upon the routing protocols. It depends upon where is your cloud data center. It depends upon where you are located from a last mile perspective. Again, it depends on network congestion.
Right.
It depends upon when you're accessing your application. So are you going to access your application when an IPL match is on? And then you know what's going to happen to congestion. So many, many variables have to be considered when you start looking at latency today versus what it was at that point in time.
Right.
And I also say another thing, Akanksha. At that time, digital infrastructure supported India. Today, digital infrastructure is in fact the heart of the economy. So there's a very big difference in terms of expectations from digital infrastructure at that point in time, in terms of the role and impact of digital infrastructure
Right.
today. So if today your digital infrastructure doesn't work, the economy creaks and croaks. At that time, if your digital infrastructure was not good enough, which it wasn't at that point in time, then of course it only impacted a few thousand enterprises and maybe a few government departments.
Right, right. Absolutely. That's a great point. So you're saying things have changed, few things have remained the same, and then there are challenges that we'll solve in near future.
And the challenges would have perhaps been very similar,
yeah,
but the way they have manifested themselves has changed a lot. And the impact is far more significant.
Sure, right. And this takes me to another question, and I would like your review on that. For example, there's a CTO who's sitting somewhere in Mumbai, Bangalore, or somewhere in NCR, and they're running a workload on a hyperscaler, right? And probably the data centers are somewhere in Singapore or a US West Coast, right? Again, coming back to the physics problem here, right? How much of India's cloud performance gap that you feel is fundamentally whether you think it's a geography issue, or it is related to the kind of architecture choices that an org or an enterprise make? Like, what is your view on that?
Yeah. So, for example, if you have chosen a SaaS provider who is hosting their application in Singapore, because they have chosen that to be the location for various reasons, the performance that you're going to get in India, and again, you can look at, let's say, a P50 latency could be 800 milliseconds. Now, for an enterprise application, typically you would want the latency to be less than 200 milliseconds. So the latency problem, in a way, therefore, still remains. You would say, Manoj, what's different? You said 25 years ago, physics was your enemy. Now, what is the problem? As I said, now the problem has moved into the software layer. So we have to go and see where that application is, where it is hosted, what is the expectation of the end customer, and what is the performance the end customer expects. So, of course, if your cloud data center is hosted in Singapore and you're accessing it from Mumbai, you are going to have latency issues. There are no marks for guessing at all.
Correct. Absolutely. And then there are conversations about, various these popular brands or bigger brands and bigger players setting up data centers in India, and they'll, the advisories will say that, that will solve your problem. But you actually think, will that solve your problem, or will they start charging Indian enterprises in Indian rupee?
I think it's a very good question. Whenever anybody creates a data center for providing cloud services, they first of all look at what are the local laws and regulations that govern the location where they are born.
Correct.
Or where they are created. And then, of course, they have to look at the economics based upon what they have built.
Correct.
So if I am a hyperscaler and I am born in the US, I have to make sure that I adhere to US laws.
Right.
Number two, because my cost structures have been determined based on where I have got created, then obviously my economics will be driven by that. It is not surprising that many cloud service providers have pegged their costing irrespective of where customers are accessing them from, denominated in the local currency of the country where they were born. So obviously, if there's any impact, for example, we have a huge impact right now happening around the world because of geo-economic situation and geopolitical situations, if you will, in terms of where Forex is, particularly with respect to the Indian rupee, then of course it's going to impact the pricing for a customer in India. So if I'm a CIO and CTO in India, my bill which I'm going to get could be from specific cloud service providers, very different on the 1st of April versus what it was on the 1st of March, even if my utilization from a network storage capacity perspective is similar.
Right, right. And Manoj very rightly said, we were talking about the bigger picture initially into this conversation, and you drilled it down back to the real economics, to where the DevOps team, the CIOs and the CTOs and what they think. And I want to come down to this, if a CTO or a CIO planning for the next 5 years in India, if they were planning for the next 5 years, like I said, as per your view, what do you think should be their top three priorities for now?
First of all, I think I would look at where is the customer set that I am going to address and I need to meet the requirements of.
Sure.
So if I am a large enterprise which is spread across 100, 200, 500 locations, because I could have depots, warehouses, my own offices, etc., then what I would be very concerned about is whether I would be able to give a similar SLA to my end customer, to my end user, whether that person is in Lucknow, in Coimbatore, in Bhagalpur, in New Delhi or Mumbai.
Right.
Consistency of delivery of performance is going to be very, very important to me. The second thing which I'm going to be very concerned about is in terms of how secure is my data, in terms of the resilience of the infrastructure on which I'm hosting my applications. And the third is in terms of cost.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, we all have to operate within limited budgets. So if I have to operate within limited budgets, the last thing that I want is that I am crawling in front of the CFO in the middle of the year saying, look, I've burnt everything that you have given.
Right.
So we have to make sure that whichever cloud service provider we are going to is going to give me a deterministic cost structure.
Right.
All of a sudden, I don't want to be told, oh, but the egress charges have changed. Oh, but you went and you touched the database 500 times more than you did last quarter. And therefore, because you did that, now your costs have gone up. Or your firewalls were talking to each other much more than they should have. And that has gone and created a different kind of complexity. I also want to go with a cloud service provider which has the maturity and what I would say the muscle to be able to support an enterprise application and an enterprise customer. Many times you will find that people are just opening up a data center, announcing we are enterprise ready when the runbooks are not even in place. So do you have the technical heft, the technical muscle power to be able to deliver to what that enterprise needs across every location that they want to serve their customers?
Right. Very well said. And this sort of like I have a question which might sound repetitive to you, but for DevOps team that are creating solutions for Indian enterprises in the fintech, in the e-com, quick com space, the healthcare AI space, what is the right kind of infrastructure that they should be working on? What is it that's the right playbook for them? If you would speak about that for a few minutes.
Number one, and again, I know it's philosophical, we can debate about it, but my view is that if you're building an application set, don't get hooked onto the proprietary tools of one provider versus the other. How do you make sure that you can move across different clouds? How do you make sure that you can move across different toolkits, if you will? How do you make sure that you're able to protect your cost structures? That is super critical. So, in effect, how do you build your application independent of the underlying cloud infrastructure that you're hosted on? I think that should be very, very important to them. Second, of course, is you have to look at what is the level of resilience of the cloud service provider that you're working with, because you are serving lots of tenanted customers. The last thing that you want is that your customer has an outage and an impact on that account. The third thing is cybersecurity. I am very deeply worried in today's day and age because you have state actors who want to, kind of bring down critical infrastructure. So I think I would look at robustness around cybersecurity as an important aspect as well.
Right.
So I think it's becoming much more complicated. Remember again that your end customer could be on a laptop in a far off location coming off a third party ISP.
Sure.
And so therefore they need to protect their endpoints. And you need to make sure as a SaaS provider that you're able to help them to protect the endpoint as well, just not go and protect where your application is hosted.
Sure. And just a quick take on what's happening in India. Do you think we're there yet? The points you just mentioned.
Yeah, India, we are, it's a journey. So let's step back. Where are most of our cloud data centers hosted today? We know that they are hosted around a few metros.
Right.
We are hopefully going to add a few more locations. So it's not that we have cloud data center in 100 cities. We have real issues, real challenges. A very interesting thing to note is that when we talk about data center capacity, Akanksha, what unit do we talk data center capacity in? The unit is not number of servers. The unit is not the storage and the capacity of storage. The unit is not in terms of lambda fiber network. The unit that we talk about is in terms of power.
Power, gigawatts.
Right? So it's amazing. So then you turn around and say, look, are we in the real estate business? Are we in the technology business? So when you start talking about cloud, you start talking about data centers, you start talking about capacity in terms of electrical units, megawatts, gigawatts, and so on. Do we have enough clean power? Do we have the grid? Do we have the capacity? Do we have renewable energy? Because you know that data centers hog a lot of electricity.
Sure.
They live on power in 100 cities in India, which is at the same level of performance. The answer is no. Few cities, yes, but not in very many cities. So I think power and availability of clean power, affordable, the grid itself, I think that plays an incredibly important role when you start talking about setting up cloud across the length and breadth of India. So there is no one single answer. Every organization needs to step back and see what is it that they really need and take a flexible approach. There is no one size fits all.
Manoj, everything that you've described is the reality of today. And moving towards almost the last section, last question of this discussion, around you've seen infrastructure cycles play in the last 4 decades. You've seen the internet era, you've seen the GCC transformation, you've seen the AI cloud. Everyone is witnessing the AI cloud era. If you were to write a CIO playbook, what is, in your honest opinion, top 2 things or top 3 things you would write as a piece of advice for the CIOs, the CTOs, and actually for the DevOps team working on different projects right now?
And I would say that I would also like to make a recommendation to the domestic cloud service providers,
100%,
particularly
yes.
given the fact that there is a huge focus around sovereign cloud as well. And maybe I'd like to touch upon that towards the end. But first, coming to your question, what does a CIO have to look for? Number one, they need to look for a cloud service provider who has the heft and the muscle, as I just said, to be able to meet the needs of enterprise applications. Somebody who has the run books, somebody who has operated these for 18 to 24 months, somebody who has the talent, somebody who actually goes and does all of the drills, the DR drills that we talk about, somebody who is located where power is not an issue, power backup has been thought through very, very carefully. The network infrastructure is solid, particularly if you are looking at international traffic coming. How far is your submarine landing station, a submarine cable landing station? That becomes an important criterion as well. So number one, I will look at credibility of the data center infrastructure, the enterprise cloud provider. I spoke about power, clean power. We have committed to being net zero as a nation by 2070.
Yeah.
The kind of capacity we are adding to the cloud as a country, going from 1.4 gigawatts to in the next 5, 7, 10 years, moving to 14 gigawatts
Correct.
and beyond, you will need power almost equal to one state just to take care of data center itself.
centers.
So power is very important. As I said, the ability just not to be in one location, but multiple locations to de-risk becomes incredibly important as well. And I would also turn around and say that I would need help as a CIO in terms of somebody who can help me architect the right solution, not somebody who looks at it from a vested point of view. I want someone to be honest with me and say, look, you've got users in these 30 locations. The latency is going to be horrible. Either you rework the application, or let's go create an edge cloud for you, make that investment,
Right.
or we look at some alternate mechanisms by which we can serve you. But having those honest architecture discussions and dialogue is incredibly important for me as well. So I will look for a partner who will look at my specific requirements, my specific environment, my specific users, the journeys that I want to go deliver to my customers, and then come up with a solid plan.
Right.
And the plan may not always be that I have to have 100% on your cloud infrastructure.
Right, absolutely. Manoj, you've been very candid about the infrastructure deficit and this conversation, and I'm sure a lot of people who are hearing this podcast, listening and watching watching the podcast, are going to take notes and are going to have practical notes for them. In this conversation, if you felt that we've not covered something you think that the CIO community, the DevOps community, and the CTO community would learn, you would like to add anything that you think we've not covered in the conversation, please go ahead. And
we are going to see a lot of foreign players. They're already there in India. We welcome them. The government's got a very robust data center policy, which, as we are architecting, we are talking about, and we want to welcome investment. But the question for domestic cloud service providers is, are we going to see a repeat of the two examples that I gave, which is Indian infrastructure, Indian land, Indian talent, Indian operations, but the platform is not ours, the IP is not ours, and the value will migrate in terms of margin somewhere else? Is this what we want repeated? Or this time, do we want to do something different? And I think the triggers are there. This time, what is different is that we have very clear regulation, the DPDP Act, which talks about data being resident in India so that the data, Indian data, cannot be subpoenaed by the US Cloud Act, as an example. So we have a trigger in terms of regulation. But what we have to do is we have to go and create our own platform. In India, I would like to encourage our Indian domestic cloud service providers to build our own platforms, because that is when you will capture full value. We need to create our own AI toolkits, because you spoke about DevOps and how do you do the development piece. We need to make sure that we bring a lot of ISVs onto our domestic cloud platforms so that we can create and build a robust ecosystem. We have a tremendous opportunity this time to do something different, to do something better, and learn from the past. And let us make sure that we capture full value of this opportunity fully in India by Indians.
I think this has been one of the most candid conversations on infrastructure deficit, on how the sovereign clouds and the domestic cloud providers can amp up and be ready for what's to come in the near future. And I think a lot of them will take a note from this conversation. Thank you for being the first voice on the AceCloud Decoded platform. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, Akanksha. And my one last word for CIOs, and that is, guys, when you're going and making your decision, please look at latency. We started this discussion with latency. The latency a lot of people will publish is P50th. You need to look at P99th. What is the performance that the worst 1% are getting? You will not get any published results. You will have to talk to practitioners because your applications may be expecting 200 milliseconds, but ultimately what gets delivered to you is 1 second. And then that becomes the non starter. So ask the tough questions. Thank you.
And on that note, we shall take your leave. Thank you so much, Manoj sir. It's been a pleasure hosting you.
Thank you, Akanksha.